Well, what if we just start right now?
Okay.
And I say, welcome to the Hyper-Realists. I'm Slime Beast. Uh,
I'm
Tormental,
also
my buddy, has lent me his channel for about 40 minutes. I don't know. And with
I'm
me
also
are,
Slime Beast.
okay, with me is Slime Beast and Slime Beast. Why don't you say hi, Slime Beasts?
Hi.
How you guys doing? You working on any new stories?
Yeah, I'm working on Abandoned by Disney 7. I
God
haven't
fucking
released
damn it! No.
I haven't
Here's
released 2 through 7 yet, but they'll
uh,
happen. Yeah.
here's
Part of the Disney cinematic universe.
here's the last Disney Abandoned by Disney story. Everybody, this fourth one is the last one. Everybody.
It's
10
all
seconds
Star
later,
Wars.
write another one. Like, fuck. God, no. Uh,
Now,
but yeah, so,
can we get it confirmed on air if you are okay with people taking the end of Corruptus and just kind of branching off and making an expanded universe of that?
oh, of course. Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, part of the reason I ended it like that was I was like, here are some more ideas for things and also an open-ended concept, do what you
Yeah.
want with it. You write Abandoned by Disney number 5. Do what you want.
You
Yeah.
potentially get sued by Disney. Have fun.
And David King of Midnight Marinera was like, "Okay."
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Um, but I think he wrote those stories before Corruptus, didn't he?
Yeah, probably. Well, yeah, definitely, but anyway.
Um, but I'm Dead Palette,
I'm a
But I'm
Bisme.
Dead Palette, and that's Abysme, who I just talked over.
and
Yeah.
And
narration is the biggest thing ruining the community.
Absolutely.
welcome back to part 2 in our 150-part series about the cancer which is killing creepypasta.
I love how much restraint we had last time to not talk about this at all. It was like an
Mm.
unspoken thing of like, we can't talk about this because this is its own episode, but this is the biggest thing.
It's just so easy, and there's so much you can pull from.
So to be clear for everybody listening, we're talking about creepypasta narrators on YouTube.
Or True Scary Story, or whatever the fuck you want to
Oh
call
yeah,
them these
I
days.
think that's honestly, I know we have another topic for the future about what the future of creepypasta will probably look like, and I think we should do a show about that or an episode about that. But for now, I'm just gonna say I really think that it looks like true story is going to be the new term, like creepypasta,
I
and I
don't
think
know.
eventually,
I think it's very much its own thing because I see in a lot of comment sections people saying read more creepypasta and then someone replying saying no, I don't like creepypasta. I prefer the true scary story stuff.
yeah,
So there really already is a huge distinction in people's minds.
interesting. But I mean, I think at some point, what I'm saying is like in the future, I think you're going to go on Reddit or you're going to go on a wiki or something, and it's going to be, here's my true story. I
True
found a video
scary.
game at a garage sale and bought it. It turned out it was haunted. Like I
What?
feel like creepypasta is going to be true story. Like that'll be the new term. I don't know.
Maybe, but it's gonna have to be titled
Yeah.
"True Scary Swap Meet Story" because
God
you
damn.
can't not give away the entirety of your fucking plot in your title anymore.
Uh,
So
but
I
yeah,
think I
yeah.
think that there is a very important thing here though, which is the no sleep rule. The no sleep rule of treat your story like it's real.
Mm,
And by saying true, you're already putting doubts in anyone with an astute
Mm-hmm.
mind that it's a true story.
True
Uh,
Scary.
I-
Oh God, what was one I saw? True Scary Afghan Werewolf Cryptid. I, I did not make that motherfucker up. You can YouTube. You can Google that. Like,
oh,
people can't hear it, but I'm smiling really wide.
there's a goat sucker joke in there somewhere, but I don't want to touch it.
Don't want to touch the goat sucker
No, no.
on this episode of Ghost Fuckers. Um, there, so in any respectable story that's supposed to be a true story, it will not say true story. It will
Right.
say, so I just went through this ordeal and I really feel like I need to vent about this, and you don't need to believe what I'm about to say. I just really need to tell some. Like there will be all of these equivocations of like, I got to get this off my chest, as
Mm.
opposed to this story's real, guys.
Yeah. It's the friend around the campfire who pops in and says, "Yeah, I know we're telling scary stories, but no, seriously, guys, this one's true. Like, seriously." And the people who like these stories that I've seen, they often also like stories or news articles about serial killers and everything. And I feel like it really misses the point, because if you turn on the news anchors don't sit there and go, "All right, guys, true fact up next. We swear this happened." They just tell you it, and you're convinced by, the narrative and the images and everything else. So yeah, I completely agree with Dead Palette that putting at the front and plastering "true, I swear to God," immediately makes me think this is fiction, which is fine. Write fiction, please do, but your writing should convince me, or at least fool me, that what you're saying actually happened.
And I never let it be said that we're not constructive, that we don't want to build this thing up, because that's why we're doing this. We care about this stuff.
Yeah.
So that said, I today was listening to someone talk about their experiences as a video game tester and their trials and tribulations at this job that they had for just a week testing a video game. And I was like, this is a really shitty experience that you had. What if you just threw a ghost into it? Just throw a fucking ghost into it and be like, and then title the story like something along the lines of "My Shitty Week as a Video Game Tester," and then just slowly build up that there's like a ghost or a demon or something really obscene about the video game. You could do all of these kinds of things that is just like a blog, essentially.
And then a skeleton popped out of the server room.
Yes.
Did you ever? There was a copypasta around for a while, a few years ago, that was just a guy talking about how he was IT for the worst company in the world. I don't remember what it's called, but it was very well written. It wasn't scary. It was just like very compelling about all the stupid shit he had to go through because he was hired for IT, but he like was super overqualified. And by the end of it, he's leaving this company that's about to bankrupt itself, and he's just taking stuff from it because he knows they won't check. And
yeah, WCW.
Yeah, that must be it.
Oh, I thought you were talking about that memo that was leaked from Google recently, but yeah.
No, that was the one where I'm not even going to touch that one because I haven't read the story.
I mean, I can see I possibly have more of a dim view of like the true story videos. I feel like, there's the portion of your memory or your brain that says, "Oh, true stories." That's like, that's kind of an innocuous fib that people tell. Like they'll say Texas Chainsaw Massacre based on a true story, and you look into it and it's like, oh, Ed Gein, like every other based on a true story. But I feel like there is almost like a more sinister, if you'll forgive the overstatement aspect to this, where I think it's just clickbait to try to capture the attention that actual real stories were getting on YouTube. Like, people were actually there was a time when videos that said true story or true real photos, there were scammers in there, of course, but I think there was a time where the majority of them were actually real footage and real things. Like, check out this footage of this man's last moment on Earth as he falls off a cliff. People would actually, through morbid curiosity, go and seek that shit out. And I almost feel like somebody discovered, there was this traffic, and so they're like, oh, cool, so maybe if I just say that this is real, I'll get those people, so I don't know.
I wish I knew, because it's really hard to find when the trend started, and most specifically on Reddit. I think it probably started with like Deep Web, and then Deep Web went into Let's Not Meet, and I think from Let's Not Meet, people went, oh, I could share an allegedly true story, but make it about whatever the hell I want. And I think that people capitalized on that, and then
I think I'm
categorized.
I guess I'm going more toward like the video aspect of it. Like, somebody once, said, "Oh shit, there are these stories that claim to be true and maybe are true, and there's all this, traffic on YouTube for people who want to see people die, or people who want to see, the baby who was born with a certain deformity, or whatever morbid curiosity thing, if I just connect those two things, the stories that claim to be true and this thing that people want to see this stuff on YouTube, and I just put up videos even though I know the stories are fake. I put up on my channel, real stories of true werewolves, people will come
You
through
may
clicking.
absolutely be right.
I
don't know.
Yeah.
Who
It's
who
just a
knows?
suspicion, like a dim view I have of
Well, I
going on.
think that both things are true. Two things can be true at the same time, as a wise man once said. I think
No.
that it is obviously clickbait, very obviously, but it's also hitting on something being misconstrued, which is the camp of creepypasta. As we've discussed, creepypasta essentially means nothing now. The camp that the three of us are coming from is the more mature, more realistic version. That's the kind of stuff that we like. The bit of chaos injected into a realistic story.
And we should point out, you mean the more mature stories, not like, we're the mature ones. All
Yes,
y'all are fuckers.
correct.
Yeah.
The term that I've used is ashcan horror.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the camp that we come from. Saying true story is like saying we want this to be realistic, but it's more about clickbait. So I think that they're trying to do both things and failing at one spectacularly and then having varying amounts of success with the other. So varying amounts of success in terms of traffic. Because once that trend has hit, then the people who are at the top, at the ground floor, will rise up, and then that's about it. And then they'll slowly trickle down, and then all these other copycats really won't get the attention that they're looking for.
And to bring it back to narrators influencing literature online, the true scary story channels absolutely encourage just the proliferation of these true scary stories because they're all slapped into categories. You'll see a serial killer or gas station or real dinosaurs. Not making that one up either. That's a real one. And it's just
Thank you, Prasicor.
fucking feathers.
Ugh.
God damn it, feathers.
See, now I'm just picturing a gas station with like the big fake dinosaurs out as like a tourist attraction, and the owner is a serial killer. You could
From New
fit it into
Vegas?
all of those.
In Arizona or New Vegas, that'll work too.
But yeah, I mean,
So you're hitting on something there, that they're put into these categories of 5 true dinosaurs at a diner story, right?
Exactly.
And that means that you're not giving any credit to the authors. And even if you link the stories, you're not really giving credit.
No, and if you look through any of these narration videos, if you're lucky if they have linked to anybody or even called out an author, but typically it's just story 1, story 2, story whatever. And there is it makes you wonder if they got permission, and if they did get permission, is it just assumed now amongst these Reddits, that someone's going to read my story, that's cool, and they don't even ask to be credited, or they don't care? It's just baffling to me.
well, I want to point out 2 things. The first thing is that I think we just created dinosaurs.
Ah, that's good.
And the second,
Yes,
5 true dinosaur stories.
that shit is strong.
The second thing is, I think that the big disservice with like the true story narrations from the narrators who are doing this is that you touched on permission about reading the stories and things like that, and how narrators usually will just either link to the page they saw the story on or not at all. It sort of breaks the idea of realism to credit an author, even if it's an author of a post that is 100% legitimate. If you say, the creator of this post was such and such, it'll still sound like the guy who wrote this fake story is this guy here. So I think it behooves them to basically not credit authors and not credit where they got something, but I don't know if that's necessarily purposeful in all cases. I think it's just something that benefits them to not credit. And a concern I have, and this is like more of like a moral panic kind of thing. Is the concern I have is that at some point we're going to have the thing where they have to build to more and more outlandish real stories, or they have to go to new resources because everybody's picking over the same subreddits. And I feel like at some point we're going to get like, 5 true sexual abuse stories. And one of these narrators is going to read out posts on a subreddit for victims of abuse.
Oh, I had not even
Things like
considered that.
I mean, that's sort of like I said, that's more like of a moral panic thing for me, not really like it's based in reality. But I feel like eventually, as resources dry up, as there's more and more need to put things out there, I mean, you don't even have to go that far with it. You could just say, 5 true stories of people killed by police, and they're harvesting, from a forum for people who have survived, are family members of people who have been killed, things like that. I feel like that's where this is going to end up, and I don't know if that's just me being hypersensitive instead of hyper-realist. But
Oh shit!
I usually don't have those kinds of concerns, but now that
Yeah.
you mention it, that is kind of, it really does set into perspective how little respect they have for the authorship. So if they're not having respect for these fake stories that are bullshit, and where they're not giving authors credit, why would they have respect for that?
I mean, I have. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, sorry. I'm kind of with you on this, DP, that I don't usually go there, but I want to bring attention to a post on Let's Not Meet I read a couple weeks ago, where basically someone was saying, I think these big narration channels are taking stories without permission, especially from throwaway accounts and anonymous posters. And there was a lot of backlash on that of narrators and supporters of narrators saying, well, they're just throwaway accounts. Clearly they don't care. And it's not an unethical or illegal thing to do. And if people are in that mind frame already for Let's Not Meet, which a lot of it is about sexual abuse, then they absolutely are capable of taking it from other Reddits. I don't think a lot of narrators would go that far, but certainly some.
Well, I mean, there's the thing of first thing is to say that if somebody's on a burner account, it most likely is something that they don't want, read for profit and shared around their story, because the reason they would be on a burner account would be one of 2 reasons. One is they made it up and they just want to, post a cool story, see if it gets any traction, see if they can, get people to believe it. Other one being that they're so embarrassed or so ashamed or so hurt or so whatever, that they don't want their account associated with it. Now, I think I'm, in a similar camp with you guys in that I don't have much misgivings about certain things with that regard, in terms of reading things or talking about things, or even, making off-color terrible jokes if it's under the right circumstances. But the part of me that is disgusted by that is the idea of somebody just wantonly doing that for monetary reasons, like just, let's see what posts we got here today. Okay, this one, and they just read them out.
Yeah.
Well, monetary, and that's an issue for sure. But I think the bigger thing is attention and respect.
Right.
Of like, I need to get these people calling me senpai. I better read this sexual abuse story. And I have written stories that involve that kind of stuff, and I really enjoy stories like that are computational, and artists obviously should be allowed to go there.
Oh, of course.
And not just go there, but go there and fail. Like you're allowed to write a story that you think is trying to take these things seriously, and then you fuck up, and then people are like, "You fucked up," and it's like, "Oh, sorry, I'll try again. I'll try better in the future." But it does throw into perspective how little respect these people.
I mean, I could, I don't know about you guys, I would assume that you've seen a lot of the things I've seen probably, but
yeah, I think we should. I think we should real quick explain what it is.
What is?
Let's Not Meet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I know of it and I know what's posted there, but I don't frequent it or anything like that, so I wouldn't be
Same.
like an
It's
expert?
okay. So it's basically it's a subreddit for people to place a certain type of story where the conceit is I had an encounter with X, be it a person who what I thought is a person or something, and typically they ended with let's not meet ever again. And it's a
Right.
recounting of usually a
Okay.
scary or traumatic event. So a lot of it is, I mean, some of it's, my brother and I were sleeping in our room when we were kids, and then a shadow guy broke into our house, and I never want to meet that guy again, uh, and that's fine. And then there's others that are like I was on the bus and a creepy guy straight up tried to assault and molest me, and if that's fiction, cool, but if that's real, I really can't imagine putting that on your YouTube channel,
Right.
especially without asking for someone's permission. It's just I
And as I said,
I
that's
don't
like a
know.
speculative thing on my part because I'm
Sure.
just thinking as true
Well,
stories aren't shocking anymore, and
I, th-
as
I,
resources
th-
dry up.
I think that's a good thought experiment, though. Is if they're not going to give respect to this kind of stuff, it shows you how respect and money hungry they actually are.
Yeah.
I mean, my imagination, goes to a certain place where I'm thinking, I'm picturing a video where the video ends with, "Did she survive? Did she die? Check out the Patreon exclusive with the end of this story." Like talking about a real person. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know,
But
but
but I interrupted you, Slime Beast.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, I said I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
Oh, just now.
No, but before I mentioned the
Oh yeah, I got it. As I said, I don't know about you guys' history and what you have or haven't seen or come across, whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
so I don't want to be like I'm telling you guys what it's like. But I have seen like plenty of videos in the past, and this is before the true story stuff. This is probably before a lot of the current creepypasta, um, where it was just videos on YouTube where it's like, hey everybody, check out this footage of this guy getting, creamed by a bus. Yeah, he's dead. Hey everybody, check out this video of this guy rolling off a hill, or rolling off a mountain. Oh yeah, he's dead. He didn't survive. Like so it's I kind of feel like I want to preface things by saying I don't think narrators would go far enough to do X, Y, and Z. But then I have to think, well, people who are already that are willing to go that far may just become people who do true scary stories and do that. So it's like there already exist people who are willing to monetize that and get fame off of that sort of thing, like actual footage and different things like that. So all you really need is just people to transition over and say, oh, this is the hot new thing now. Okay, yeah, well, I'll just read whatever. It doesn't matter to me. I'll
The
do whatever.
only reason why I think that probably won't happen is that with this whole adpocalypse situation on
Well, that's
YouTube,
true.
um, a lot of narrators are just on one hand the well is drying up and they're all narrating the same stories now, and even their fans are like, guys, what the fuck. um, and we can get into why that's happening later. But not only that, it's that it's just becoming untenable to profit off of other people's free and voluntary work. So they're moving over to places like Twitch, or they're becoming a different channel, or they're getting a different job. And I hope that that's a deterrent to big channels that do these types of infractions, and hopefully a deterrent to what you're proposing. Because, like I said, it
Right.
could happen, and I've seen channels who would stoop that low.
well, remember there for a while, and obviously this is still the case to a giant degree, but it's like let's plays are like the only thing on YouTube.
Mm.
Let's plays, and everyone called out. I think someone rightly that this is kind of like an easy thing to do, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you have these people that genuinely care about it and stuff, and then slowly a lot of the people that were doing it just for profit or for respect or whatever attention kind of stopped doing it, and now it's kind of fallen into a category of its own. A lot of
And
Well,
people.
that's
What were you gonna
that's
say?
a big thing here is, part of the reason that my buddy Tormental lent me this channel was that that's the, what most people are going to be watching is on a ridiculous Let's Play channel. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to talk down what he does, but you know.
Well, and there's still
There's
an
that self-awareness,
enormous.
but I,
There's-
what I was going to say is that as these narration channels take literally less effort than Let's Plays, and everyone says Let's Plays are the easy thing to do. You don't even have to manage playing a game, because playing a game and talking at the same time is surprisingly difficult.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I guess the similarity would be not being able to get through the sentences without fucking up.
Yeah.
Well, and Let's Plays still have a very strong following on YouTube. The top,
Obviously.
The top most subscribed channel is a Let's Player. You know, go figure. But a lot of channels that resorted to Let's Plays or started out as Let's Plays are also branching out into other content, and it's really just funny to see narrators like not kind of get the hint of, hey, you can't do the same shit for the rest of your life because things change and people's tastes change, and you know, all these other incentives to do something else. An example I brought up recently on a video I did was the Game Grumps, which I think just hit 4 million subscribers. They did Let's Plays because they wanted to fund animation and their music and their touring and everything, and now they've built up a business around it because they're not stupid and naive. And I think a lot of these narrators are kind of like pro football players who get kind of scooped up out of college and then given millions of dollars, and then when their career's over, they're broke because they don't know how to save money. And it's just it's I see a very similar trend here with people who have made their living, quote unquote living, off of reading other people's voluntary work, and it's expecting it to always be there. And then it blows up because you have 1,000 narration channels doing the same shit.
Yeah, but the metaphor is kind of a shitty one that you just made, because football players are talented.
Well, I mean, the head injuries are shared, so
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Well, that's the difference. Is football players don't start out with head injuries; they get them, and then and the narrators start off really stupid, and then eventually wake up and realize, oh God, what have I been doing with my life?
that comes down to a big thing here, which is like, you know, we can talk about YouTube narrators not getting the hint to move on to something else. The question, I guess, would be, what would they move on to? I don't know.
Writing their own goddamn fucking stories.
Oh, can you imagine?
Getting professional voiceover roles. I mean, like, fuck. And if they really need to just read stories the rest of their goddamn lives, just read Lovecraft. Like, and I swear, the more I look at these channels' comment sections, it's mostly people going, God, I love your voice. Like, they don't give two shits about what's being read. And most of them are just there for, like, it's 2 a.m. and I want to be creeped out a little bit.
Well, I take issue with that, because they do care about what's being read, and so they'll read some stories early on that people really like, and then they just kind of stop questioning it, so they get it in their head like, no, they're reading quality content, and then eventually they start reading shit, and that phase has already been through. That interrogatory phase of like, let's suss out your content is already through. And so they would not pay to listen. They would not listen to them if they were just reading the phone book. It is not about their voice. It never has been.
I think it depends really on the channel, especially the ones that are not. They're not like, what's B Bust is one of them. Oh God, name drop. Like,
goddamn,
he doesn't really fucking present himself as a horror guy. He's just like, hey, I'm Australian, and here's my weird mustache thing. Very kind of Markiplier-ish. And I swear that most of them just don't really care about the stories they do. But you're absolutely right. A lot of them, like the channels, they are taking a hit because people are saying, wow, what you're presenting to me is not good.
Yeah, and it's taking a long time for the listeners to catch on that, what have I been doing?
Yeah.
Listening to this stuff.
The thing is, you know, once these people are forced to move on from reading creepypasta, a major problem is that they all have creepypasta in their name.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, welcome to, you know, Da Pasta Creeps channel. where we do sketch comedy. You know, like, well, no, no.
That'll go over as well as all of that guy with the glasses shit went over. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a commitment to something that I don't use the term timeless. That's probably the wrong word, but it's not a commitment to something that is a real passion. And so now that the money and the attention and the respect is drying up, they're moving on. They don't have to move on. They can keep stealing other people's stories and reading it. They're just not going to because it's not about that to them. It's
Right.
about the attention and the money.
And a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
mean-
People
them,
calling you senpai.
a lot of them are, funnily enough, moving over to Let's Plays because that's easy and still garners a lot of attention. And there's a vivisection of people who like horror and people who like video games, apparently.
The funny thing is, I used to marvel at the fact that when I would have like somebody that I would have either a disagreement with or somebody that I just wanted to look into in general who was doing YouTube narrations or reviews or discussions or whatever about Creepypasta, 9 times out of 10, if I looked into their history of videos, they started out as a Let's Play channel or something similar to that. And eventually, you know, like within maybe 5 to 10 videos, they were doing creepypasta narrations. So it was like they said, "Oh, Let's Plays are so oversaturated, I'm not getting any views or traffic." Oh, creepypasta, and boom, you know, they got big. You know, so it's like it's kind of an interesting thing now is that sort of is flipping, you know, from what you mentioned about people now getting into Let's Plays instead of creepypasta.
I'm convinced that a lot of these narrators were just told one day, either by a friend who is a narrator, which I have seen happen, hey dude, it's super easy, come on, we'll share subs and stuff. Or,
Right.
hey, you've got a voice, try creepypasta. And they just go, yep, that's okay, cool. And they just like they come out of nowhere and you see no evidence of them liking horror writing before or being part of a writer's circle or anything like that to any degree. And granted, I came to the whole creepypasta game very, very late in my life because I was overseas and didn't do much with internet. But like I've liked writing for a long time and I've liked dark stuff, so it was kind of a natural progression. A lot of these guys, they just like, you know, like you said, they're Let's Players, and then creepypasta, that's a thing.
Wait, so does anyone know about like people who read sci-fi on YouTube?
I actually haven't seen a lot of that, but I'm sure it exists.
Yeah, I've seen a couple, and then they
But
moved
see, that's-
over to horror.
See, that's the thing too. Is so that's the trend. Meanwhile, you do a show about sci-fi and stuff because it's something you care about.
Yeah.
And I have friends that really care about dinosaurs, more than one actually, and they have channels about dinosaurs, and they're not hugely successful, but they do it because they enjoy talking about something they. And I would just encourage people to like suss out like, does this person actually give a shit about the shit that you give a shit about? And usually it's not the case. I think,
and it's hard to tell. Because they like these narrators will do everything in their power to convince their fans. A lot like these kind of nerd culture podcasts where they just they talk endlessly about minute stupid bullshit in the new Spider-Man
Welcome
trailer.
to the Big Bang Theory.
Exactly. It's hard to be like they don't really care. Yeah, they do. Look how much work they put into it. Yeah, but they don't really care. Why can't you tell?
It's weird that people can't.
Not to toot my own horn too much, he said.
Tooting
before
his own
tooting
horn.
his horn. Yeah. That's sort of like. Actually, I shouldn't say my own horn. My buddy Tormental. When he plays games, if he doesn't like the game, he gets pissed and he doesn't play the game again in the video. If I don't enjoy something, you know, I don't do it anymore. And sometimes people get pissed off because they're like, you know, why did you only do one Undertale video? And it's like, because I didn't even get through the tutorial and I was already pulling my hair out and screaming. You know, like, you know, that's the thing is, you know, if you see somebody who is doing whatever, you know, reading horror stories, reading creepypasta, reading sci-fi stories, talking about dinosaurs, talking about Big Bang Theory, you know, if they just love everything, and everything's great and everything's perfect and here's the next great wonderful thing, it sort of, to me at least, shows a bit of dishonesty about whether they actually are truly into what they're talking about, because you can't be into creepypasta and enjoy every creepypasta. Like, I
Absolutely.
don't think it's possible.
It's not. And I think I saw an interview with Unit 522 where he was asked, do you prefer creepypastas or true scary stories? And he says, oh, I prefer creepypastas. I prefer, like, creative fiction. But my fans like it, so I do it. And at
Right.
least he's honest.
Right.
Like, at least he admits as to what his motives are. The rest of these channels are just, they'll read fucking anything. And it's like, dude, what is your filter? There is none, because just everything shows up here.
And that's part of the problem with trying to suss out what is what, because if these channels are reading anything that is vaguely horror related, then it all just blurs together and there's no real conversation.
Absolutely. And, like, what do you... I don't try to put too much importance on these guys, but they have very large fan bases, and they are influencers in the quote-unquote community. And their
And
fans are
they've
being fed, like, just, it's shotgun blast everything, and there's no curation, there's no discussion, so it's consumed pretty much as average garbage, and no one really cares about quality on these channels.
and so it's really misled people into it's really driven down the quality of work, because if these influencers are just reading these stories and they don't see anything wrong,
Nope.
and
I think we lost you for a second. If they don't see anything wrong.
if they don't see anything wrong with these stories, the narrators, then why would the people listening see any problem with them? And I look at influencers in other communities and I can't help but think, wow, you guys actually lucked into having some pretty cool influencers. Where why don't we have any?
DP is sitting back like, where's the PewDiePie of creepypasta?
Oh, Jesus.
And obviously PewDiePie gets some shit, but there's been times when he's like, nah, this is kind of bullshit, and he's kind of looked out for people who have helped him.
Right.
And these narrators don't look out for the people who write these stories. So all of the good authors have just kind of moved on and said, well, creepypasta is a failed experiment. And again, I contest that they did it silently. They're just like, well, I wrote this without expecting to get attention or money, but now I'm realizing people are stealing attention and money on something that I wanted to be free.
I think the silent part is like when, a new album drops from an artist. And, there are definitely the critics and there are definitely the people who are saying, it's terrible and, his next album is really going to be terrible and he's not putting any work into it and so on and so forth. But I think that the majority is just the people who bought the previous album that just don't this time. Like, that's like the silent move out, is the people who were reading the creepypasta but aren't reading it this time or aren't listening this time. Like, the people who just remove their subscription to Mr. Creepypasta or whatever, and that's it for,
Well, there's not the so when you're on YouTube and you have a someone on just on YouTube who makes a gaffe or like speaks up about a political opinion, you'll get the people in the comments that say unsubscribed, and then it'll get all the upvotes or whatever and stuff like that, and there will be a loud exodus. That's not the kind of problem that they've run into, because people aren't. I think we're morally outraged because we're tired of people stealing content. But most people are just like, these stories are actually kind of shit, and they silently unsubscribe. There's not the moral panic. There's not the political angle to it. So they just unsubscribe. They don't need to let the person know. So they just leave.
Yeah, that's pretty convincing, actually. I'd have to agree with that.
And I think, there's a lot of people, like, even listening to this right now, there are probably a lot of people who will say, it's not really stealing to, take somebody's story and, read it out loud in a video and monetize it and, maybe link back to the place you found it. That's not, how could you consider that stealing or, piracy or whatever? And I think that mostly is because of the scale of it. I think if you reduce the scale and you say one person wrote a Steven Universe fan fiction story on a forum, one person, and one guy with a YouTube channel saw that story and made one video reading that one story and he monetized it. Now does it seem like it's wrong? Like if we reduce the scale where it's not just a pasta eating contest and they're just churning out everyday videos, everyday, true stories, everyday creepypastas. If we reduce it down to just one guy who wrote one story and one YouTuber who read it out loud and monetized it and credited it improperly, now does it seem like it's a little bit amoral,
I'm glad you brought that up because it's this is something I've been watching very closely, and it's a lot of different factors. To go back to the Let's Not Meet post we were previously discussing, a lot of people in there were just generally and genuinely ignorant of intellectual property law.
Right.
And they don't understand that once you make something and put it in a tangible format, it's yours. It exists. It's not safe, but that doesn't excuse the theft, of course.
Right.
And that I can understand. Law is dense and it's filled with legalese and it's weird and you just you don't want to think about it. I get that. But for these narration channels who deal with DMCAs and they've been a part to all these big drama fests about people stealing stuff and videos getting taken down and fans getting angry, like they have no excuse at this point to be ignorant of what it is to steal a story. And again, their fans follow their word on this because they're not being told otherwise except by people like us, and we don't have very big followings.
Well,
So
there's also this element of DMCAs are evil.
Right.
And the reason people think that is because DMCAs are abused by giant companies. The dynamic is very different there because it is a big corporation attacking the little guy. And a lot of the times we're trying to review this film with short clips of the film and it's being attacked by YouTube's content ID system.
Right.
Very clear that they're trying to silence criticism. That's entirely different from you, the small guy, writing a short story for free and then someone essentially pirating it. Because
I think it's that same idea that people have where it's like, fucking police, fucking pigs, and I, to a certain extent, I'm not a fan of, police in general. Fucking police, fucking pigs, and oh my god, wait a minute, the counter protester took my sign. Cops, aren't you going to arrest him? So it's like that thing of fucking DMCAs, and I have had people file false DMCAs on me, like, specific people. And, I'm like, fucking system, you could just abuse it so fucking easily, and this is ridiculous. But, also, when somebody uploads, uploads the latest Alien movie, like Alien Covenant on YouTube, I'm like, yeah, I understand. That needs to be DMCA'd, like, there's real use for this, and then there's a lot of abuse of it. So,
and that goes back to no perfect system, but I have let's just call it what it is. I've stolen a story. I read a story called 12 Minutes by Robokai. And when I read that story, I read it with a lot of conviction. I worked on it a lot. It wasn't a simple one-take thing. And I put a lot of work and effort into it because I really believed in the story. The end result of this is Robokai contacts me and says, I really like your version of the story and I like the analysis you did of it. And essentially, they didn't care that I didn't ask permission because I was elevating the story and not myself. I was saying, look at this cool thing I found. This is my fan art of it. And I am the fan and this is the artist. I established that that's the hierarchy, if that makes any sense.
Now
Yeah,
the
I mean,
problem with that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, that's right. I was just gonna basically echo what DP was saying. So
Yeah, like being transformative is an argument you can have until you're dead, and but I just there's a danger in that sentiment of the artist liked it and they're fine with you narrating it without permission, because a lot of people will latch onto that and go, well, this author didn't care, so authors shouldn't care, and that just gives people carte blanche to just freaking take everything. It's kind of it's same with
Yes.
the way that the creepypasta wikia, everything's CC by SA unless stated otherwise, because you're uploading via their terms. And so people go, well, Reddit's basically a wikia. I'll take whatever I want. And it's a very, very slippery slope to go down. But I do see
Yes.
what DP's saying, absolutely.
What
well,
I'm getting
yeah,
at, what I'm getting at is that it wasn't. I don't often narrate other people's stories. I did this because I really felt that I understood the story and I wanted to elevate it. And what Robokai was saying to me privately was essentially, um, I've seen other people do this, but you're the only one I've contacted because it's so clear that you are giving this the attention that it deserves. And I think you're giving it more attention than it deserves, in their words. Um, but the thing is, I wasn't doing it to elevate myself. I was doing it to elevate the author, is the point I'm trying to.
right. Because I mean, the thing is, with how writers react, how authors react. I mean, basically what DP did was he wrote a poem, he got a rose, and he approached the author and, recited the poem, gave them the rose, and gently kissed them on the hand. And, some people may be like, whoa, hey, I didn't give you permission to come and do this and kiss me on the hand. That's awful presumptuous. But no, the author was flattered and found it romantic. Now, what a lot of narrators do is walk up to you and put your fingers in their mouth and suck them. and some people, no doubt, would be very turned on by a random stranger walking up and starting to suck their fingers. But a lot of people aren't into that. So, this idea of,
And
I would love if Mr. Creepypasta came up and gave me a big wet kiss, open mouth with a mouthful of beer nuts. But,
And you just wrote your very first Let's Not Meet story. Congratulations.
yeah, there you go. But,
but
the
there's
idea
also,
that somebody would like that doesn't mean everybody would,
if Robokai messaged me and said like, hey, I really don't like that you did that. Guess what I would have done? Taken down the story. I would have been like, I'll do that. I really wish you would let me leave it up. I didn't monetize it. I really liked it. But if they were like, no, you got, okay, fair
Yeah.
enough. I didn't ask you.
Yeah, and you may have not. You've done a lot to that story to transform it into something else. I don't know how much due diligence you did, but like that, what you did is above and beyond what most narration channels will do. I sometimes read sci-fi from the 40s to the 70s because I think that their copyrights have lapsed, and I spent about 6 months trying to find out who to contact to ask for permission and where the owners were, but who the publishing company was, what the publishing company got absorbed by. I contacted the copyright office. I spoke to lawyers. And at the end of the day, I said, well, fuck it. I can't get a clear answer. I'm going to do it. But I constantly say, if I'm infringing your copyright, tell me and I'll take it down if you want. And
Right.
that's having an honesty and a decency to yourself to be like, hey, I don't know. And it's okay to not know. Just own up for your mistake. And
You know who
Interestingly
knows?
enough,
You know who
okay.
knows? Giant creepypasta narrators. They fucking know what they're doing.
Yeah.
oh,
As
I
we-
think
going
that
back to
that connects back to something DP said earlier about being allowed to fuck up.
yeah.
Yeah.
If somebody comes forward and says, "Whoa, you fucked up," you're like, "Ah, shit." You're
Sorry
allowed
about
to
that.
fuck up. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to think you were doing something legit, and then it turns out you weren't, or whatever. It's like we've said multiple times. Certain people have been shown on many occasions that what they're doing is, under the table, not legit, and they're like, Oh yeah. Sorry about that. Anyway, next video that I'm doing the same exact thing in, you know.
Well, I mean, we can cite that example of Mr. Creepypasta who's done that, where you've contacted him and, hey, I wrote the story, and then you seem to be hashing things out. It's like, well, I don't know if you're the real Slime Beast, and it's like, okay, so you're just deciding that you don't give a shit about, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, you know, that sort of builds into a larger point that I had that whole big kerfuffle with Mr. Creepypasta, and it's not really too much about my experience with that and everything. It's the fact that several years later, Mr. Creepypasta is still getting strikes on his channel from authors, you know, because he still is, you know, doing the thing of, you know, just hitting random reading a story, and you know he's still getting the things filed against him, and you know in some cases maybe there have been abuses of the system, I don't know, but it just goes to show that you know nothing was learned essentially, or you know it was learned and just ignored, you know, but I don't know.
And a lot of narrators will do the absolute bare minimum to not get caught. And when they do get caught, you know, they go to their fans and they complain. A common example I like to cite is if you look at these narration videos, almost without fail, will the music that's used in the background that they didn't write, of course, is credited properly and linked properly, because YouTube's content ID system is really fucking good at finding music. I know
Right.
this because I got 2 strikes on my original songs from a kind of a bot account that is like from some other publishing company, and of course it got proven wrong because they're working off a poor algorithm. But it is like super fucking easy to spot your music being used somewhere without your permission. It is not easy to, you know, try to find your art using a thumbnail or your story that's read aloud. It's nigh impossible unless you're looking around, and it's especially impossible if a narrator doesn't credit you properly.
Right.
And these narrators are just fine with, you know, skirting around the law like this, despite being informed of the proper usage, because they know their chance of getting caught's very low.
And I almost feel like this is I haven't seen in all the years I've been thinking about this and dealing with it at certain times, I've never seen anything come up that's similar in other genres or other communities. Like I've never seen a video recommended or someone mentioning in passing, you know, yeah, the same fucking thing happens in the goddamn My Little Pony fanfiction community. Like,
It's yeah,
you know, I
it's
never see
weird.
anybody doing this except creepypasta narrators, and it might just be that I haven't stumbled across that community yet, but it's interesting.
I find it.
There's
Sorry, go
there's
ahead.
also, oh, you go ahead actually.
Oh, I was just going to say, to bring it back to Let's Plays, I was listening to a podcast of a lawyer that I follow sometimes, and he was talking about a recent kerfuffle with a video game company, a publisher that made a video game that's basically a walking simulator through a story. And they said, no one can, you can't stream this, you can't Let's Play this because it will ruin the story for everybody, because there's really only one way to play the game. And people blew up at that. And the lawyer said, you can think whatever you want about it, but the truth of the matter is, Let's Plays are only legal as long as publishers allow them to be. Because when you buy a copy of a game, you don't get to use it wherever the fuck you want. You're licensed to use it, to play it basically, and to share it with your friends. But so like tomorrow, every video game studio could wake up and go, "No, we're pulling the plug on this shit," and they would have a very Let's Players would have a very hard time fighting back against that.
Right.
Narrators, they get away with this because it's people posting for free, and they don't have lawyers behind them, and they don't have all this structure behind them, and it's really just taking advantage of this kind of open freeform system that we've been discussing.
And I think that the reason that Let's Plays have developed the way that they do, where, you know, like PS4 has a dedicated share button and everything, I think that things have developed the way that they have because they saw that it was better for promotion, because
Right.
generally they want to be people want to be able to play the game themselves. And there is a degree to which a Let's Play is fulfilling a certain desire that is different from the game itself.
Yeah.
So I have one specific instance. I know he agrees with me on this. I really like Life is Strange.
Never
I
played
like
it.
Life
Don't
is
have an
Strange.
opinion.
Fucking hell.
But Life is Strange is a game with very little interactivity. It's mostly about the choices you make. And I watched a Let's Play of it, and I kind of felt gross after the ending because I realized, oh shit, that kind of like took away all of my incentive to buy the game,
Mm-hmm.
do it for
Right.
me. And
Yeah.
that's not exactly true because I could take different choices and everything. So I went out and bought the game afterwards because I'm like, shit, I really enjoyed the game that I didn't play.
Yeah.
But I've been playing a lot of Killing Floor. Watching a video of someone playing Killing Floor is completely different than playing Killing Floor. And they're
Absolutely.
fulfilling two different. One is I want to sit back and vegetate. One is I want to be involved in this action. And I think that most video games fall into that I want to be part of the action thing. And so the Let's Play thing developed the way it did because it's just good for video games. But this is not good for authors.
No.
I think that's a very interesting thing, though, is the perspective of it from the perspective of somebody who is selling creepypasta books. It's
Yes.
like, why would anybody have a problem with this? Go out and write a book and publish it, and, I'm promoting your book. So it's like, almost this kind of thing of like with the video game things, saying that it kind of promotes the video game. Some of these people, I don't know whether it's a legitimate reasoning or whether it's just like a band-aid, way to stop people from complaining, but a lot of times you'll see something where it's like, so write a book and publish it and get money from it, and these YouTube channels will be promoting your book.
Well,
And it's like,
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, as DP said, Let's Plays can enhance a game or enhance a gaming community, and narrators love. Sorry, go ahead.
There's also this element of Let's Plays generally are not replacing the video game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Narrations are replacing reading story. And there's a huge difference there.
But yet narrators will absolutely say, hey, I'm enhancing the community, I'm bringing attention to it, which is just the most annoying fucking excuse I've ever heard in my life. Because whereas in Let's Plays, to play a game, you have to buy a game. If you take someone's story, you're not paying them shit. And I think it's pretty commonly known now that exposure bucks aren't worth anything. And I don't, I can count on one hand the amount of creepypasta authors who have sold a book. And it's
literally
not,
one
it's not
book.
the same thing. Yeah, I do not see these authors just coming out of the woodwork going, oh man, someone read my one story and 20 others for 5 minutes and now I'm a successful author. Like, that just doesn't happen.
I mean, can you imagine listening to even not as normal narrator fans? We're not fans of the YouTube narrators, but even if you were like someone who was a huge fan of, one of these creepypasta narrators, could you imagine listening to a story on YouTube and going, my God, I have to read more by this author. Does he have a book out? That's not what anybody does.
No. No.
Meanwhile, on Undercooked Analysis, we read a story. Oh man, struggling to remember the name of it, but it was written by the person who wrote Baraska or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right. Yeah.
We read that story, and we at the end were like, "Hey, so we read that story, and we enjoyed it and everything. We're definitely going to tackle this author in the future. Go check out some of their works." And that person contacted us and was like, "Yep, people are checking out my work because,
nice. Great,
and
because it was review as opposed to just reading the story straight."
Yeah,
exactly. And they're like, "Okay, we want to get out ahead of you guys reading more." Mm-hmm. And that's been I'm struggling to remember, but there's been other cases like that where we've been like, "Hey, go read this because we're going to read it and you might get something out of it if you read it first."
Mm.
We just
Yeah.
read Zorax and said, "Hey, releasing Zorax this date. Read it for yourself first, because this is going to be a trip."
Right, and plus, it was spoiled for you right away by the tags. Or for David, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I guess, I mean, does anybody else have anything else they want to discuss? Or I think we've kind of run the gamut of, just discussing creepypasta narrators and sort of like the issues. Maybe not problems. Some people might disagree they're problems, but at least we can agree, hopefully all of us out there, that there are issues to be addressed,
Yeah.
possibly.
I think.
Well, I like that it's biting them in the ass.
Yes.
There's that the benefit of the adpocalypse. I think YouTube's going to come out better on the other side of the adpocalypse, but maybe also worse in many ways. So it's a blessing and a curse. I think one thing is
It's really fucking the.
it's really fucking the creepypasta narrators in the ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that is like I said this once before and I'll say it again. I sympathize with someone having their income completely slashed.
Right.
That's happened to me in a job, and I had to and then I quit that job and found another one. But at the same time,
at that job were you doing something unethical?
I was working at a law firm, so choose for yourself.
Abysme was a
Okay.
hitman,
All right.
actually.
But basically, like, it's what I'm seeing is that, and there's actually from other narrators too, a lot of them are saying, well, I never did it for the money to begin with, so I'm going to keep doing it. And then these big ones trying to make a living off of it are going, oh, woe is me, and I have to move over to Twitch now. So my hope is that this apocalypse will really just cut down the idea that, hey, just make this derivative, stale, formulaic channel and actually do something interesting, because the narrators that are left so far, and the ones that I follow, which aren't many, do other shit and actually do like one story, and it's clear that they selected it for a reason, as opposed to just like, oh, random button, what's popping up.
It's interesting to see with the adpocalypse, and I've been hit really hard by it. So I'm like,
Tormental.
I'm not saying like, as an outsider, pointing at other people, but it's really interesting to see people who would normally be like when there was the .com crash, and that bubble burst, there was a lot of Schadenfreude, or whatever the fuck the term is. There was a lot of the thing of, yeah, all of those people, all those 20-somethings who put all of their stock in the idea that their app for finding bathrooms in San Francisco was going to be the next $1 million, billion-dollar thing. Boy, they're all out on their ass and homeless. Ha ha ha. That was sort of like a thing of like, all these people put so much of their lives into something that was so precarious, and isn't that silly of them? And all different things that have happened like that throughout recent time, of like, this company is, not doing well, and it's like, well, big surprise, they put all their stock in this fad that went by, ha ha ha. But it's interesting to see the reaction now, where it's like with the adpocalypse, and it's like, my YouTubers, no, my poor babies, they're starving. It's like, it's the same fucking thing. A lot of people, myself included, put a little too much weight behind the idea that they were going to get a certain amount each month. And, I luckily have other work I do. If I had reached a point where I was making enough to live on YouTube, I might have put all of my stock in that like an idiot. I don't know. But at the end of it, I wouldn't be sitting here saying, holy shit, my ad revenue is down. Everybody else, quickly, you have to supplement my income.
And
I'd be like, well, fuck, now I got to do something else,
Yeah. And unlike like the .com crash, those are people actually making something and looking
that's
to
true.
make something. Narrators, and I saw a beautiful comment on, I think it was Beatbusta's I'm Quitting YouTube video, who said, you read other people's stories over songs you didn't make with images that you didn't make. What the fuck did you think was going to happen? And I've been tweeting about this all day, just going, yeah, you can't expect to make a living off of other people's free work.
Right.
if it's gone, it's gone. If YouTube shut down tomorrow, it's gone. There's no foresight on these narrators' part of what am I gonna do if shit hits the fan. And it should be I'll get a different job, but no, it's I'm gonna bitch about my employer for months and months and months and try to garner pity that's not gonna achieve anything.
I mean, if I had I want to say if I had a nickel for every time, but I don't know if that's a phrase that anybody other than grandfathers use right now. But if
The
I had a
fuck's a
nickel for every
nickel?
time I've seen
If I
somebody
had a
saying,
if I had a Patreon dollar for every video I upload,
there you go. If I had a Bitcoin for every time,
Ooh, that's 2,500 a pop. So yes, please.
there you go. But if I had a Patreon dollar for every time I saw a YouTuber complaining about a copyright strike or an abuse strike or something like that, saying, this could end my channel. If I get 2 more of these, I'm off YouTube. It's like, yeah, that was the deal when you came in. I mean, that's why it behooves you to not get strikes. Now, there are unfair ones that are filed, but it's that thing of, oh no, the adpocalypse is here. I'm the victim. Oh no, I got, strikes on this content. I'm the victim. Oh no, my channel it was shut down, through some accident. I'm the victim. And it's like, yeah,
Well,
can you just deal with it? Can you just fix your channel and get back to us when you have the content you're producing in return for money? Like,
well, again, that's mimicry, because early on in YouTube, that's when there started to be big political debates happening off of major channels and everything, and people were actually engaging political ideas, and people who disagreed with each other would go around false flagging each other and say things like, "Hey, if I get any more of these copyright strikes or these like abuse strikes or whatever, then I'll be shut down. They're trying to
Right.
shut down my political opinion." And that's very clearly what it was.
Yeah.
And then it transitioned into they're trying to shut me down by using the thing as it was intended to be used.
Yeah,
It's
because I
like,
mean, as I've said, I've gotten fake abuse claims and fake DMCAs and things like that, so I know it does happen. And when it does happen, I'll go on Twitter or I'll make a video or whatever and say, "Well, holy shit! Somebody just decided they're going to try to, shut my channel down." But it's just a matter of, it's this idea that everything that happens, every single negative thing that happens, is like, quickly, my subscribers and followers, step in and prevent this. Step in and keep me afloat. Step in, and it's like, I don't know what other. Is there any other
No.
facet of life where, besides YouTube, where people can just say, oh shit, I'm having problems. Everyone step in and stop it. Like, I don't
I'm
know.
having
What's-
problems I brought on myself by doing something skeezy and ethically dubious, and I know it is. There was that
Right.
one guy who uh, narrated one of your stories and then went on Twitter and was like, "Oh, someone false
fuck,
flagged
yeah.
me. It must have been because I voted for this person." And it's like,
Yeah.
you have no evidence of any of this and didn't look into why it was flagged at all.
Yeah.
That maybe it might have something to do with the story you didn't ask to narrate.
Oh god.
Did everyone like collectively forget what happened to animators just a year ago or so? About the algorithm changed and they got shut the fuck out of YouTube,
Yeah.
and they all just up and left or changed like course. Like, why is anybody surprised at this again? It's
And meanwhile,
collective-
and meanwhile, the animators made something
yeah,
out of whole cloth, made it, just fabricated it all by themselves. Voice acting, the animation, the sound, all of that shit made by hand originally. And that's part of the thing is YouTube is this wild west where anything can be popular a year or a week, and high effort stuff that has lasting like staying power means nothing.
yeah.
That's pretty much along the lines of what I was thinking when you mentioned that. I was thinking, if that happened now, there would be no support for the animators.
No.
The
Or very little.
animators would be like, do I really want to pay in to support somebody who uploads maybe once a month, if that?
Yeah.
You know, with these creepypasta narrators, I'm getting something every day, man. But
Okay,
yeah.
and I don't know if we want to save this for the next segment, but in response to well, fucking adapt and move on like an adult. A lot of them are saying, oh, what's the phrase they use? Oh, like YouTube's killing horror, and they're killing the YouTube community because the horror community on YouTube because my channel is dying. And it's just it's the most pretentious, egocentric thing I've ever seen. Like, you guys
I don't
don't make
need.
fucking anything.
I don't know if we need an entire episode to explain why that's bullshit.
The
Oh.
hashtag keep YouTube creepy thing is
Jesus.
unequivocally retarded
Yes, it is.
because that's not where the horror comes from. There are very few people who make short horror films on YouTube. It's all coming from off-site people. YouTube has never been creepy.
It's all this free shit that you use. It's the free images that you probably steal. It's the free songs that people work very hard on, and it's the free stories. It's it's all stuff you get for free, and you present these things. You don't make anything. It's just, oh man, that pissed me off pretty badly yesterday.
I'm waiting for the narration channel where they don't even narrate it. They like have just like someone else do the voice, or they use text to speech, or you know.
Those exist.
Well,
Those
I mean,
exist.
I guess what I'm saying
Shut
is
up,
like
those exist.
the. I guess I'm saying like the big YouTube channel with like a Patreon, where it's like, help me keep my channel afloat with my text to speech and image I
well.
found and story I found and.
I think one of the biggest top 10 videos out there with the most hits is a text to speech channel.
Oof.
I think I heard
Wow.
that from, I think, Baptism on Fire earlier yesterday or today. So
Well, if
it's
that's what
baffling.
pulls in the views, then I guess I should close out this episode by saying, this has been the Hyper-Realists, and my name is Slimebeast. I am here with DP and Abysme. Check out their channels in the description below. That's my impression of a text-to-speech program.
Pretty good.
That was a really good impression of Litterbot.